All right, today we're tearing into a work of art that is just as brutal as it is beautiful. Katsuya Terada's hyper-violent take on a legend that's thousands of years old. This thing is a wild ride through heaven, hell, and actual history, and it pretty much turns everything you thought you knew about this hero on its head. So, let's get into it.
So, meet our guy. Now this is not the playful little monkey trickster you might have seen in cartoons, no. This is Son Goku as an absolute force of nature. A demon born from the earth itself, screaming his defiance at a heaven he wants to burn down. You can just feel the raw, untamed energy in every single scratch of Terada's pen. This isn't just a character, it's a hurricane of pure rage given a body.
And that really is the million-dollar question, isn't it? All the chaos, the carnage, the absolute fury you see on these pages, it isn't just there for shock value. It's actually the latest and maybe the most extreme version of a story that has been evolving for centuries, winding its way through faith, philosophy, and folklore.
To really wrap our heads around this legend, we've got to start with Terada's version of the guy at the center of it all, a creature of pure, unfiltered, violent rebellion.
I want you to just forget any idea of a moral quest for a second. This version of Goku, he runs on pure instinct. He kills, he fights, he tears things apart, not for some grand purpose, but because that's just his nature. He is chaos. He's a walking, talking, screaming challenge to the whole idea of a calm, orderly heaven ruled by the gods.
But, and this is where the story gets absolutely fascinating, this whole epic fantasy, with all its gods and monsters, it all started with one single, real person on a mission that sounds completely impossible. So let's pivot from myth right into history. Back in the 7th century, there was this Buddhist monk in China named Xuanzang, and he was getting really confused by all these different religious texts that seemed to contradict each other. So he decided to do something, well, something completely insane. He was going to walk to the source, all the way to India, to find the real teachings for himself.
And this timeline just perfectly lays out the incredible scale we're talking about. I mean, look at this. You have the birth of the Buddha, then more than 1,000 years later, Xuanzang makes his journey, and then it takes almost another 1,000 years before the fantasy novel we all know as Journey to the West even gets written down. The roots of this story are unbelievably deep.
For 16 years, that's how long Xuanzang was on the road. 5,000 miles, on foot, each way. I mean, think about that. He crossed deserts that are now literally nuclear test sites. He climbed mountains that had Buddha statues so huge they were only destroyed in our lifetime. This wasn't a myth. It was a real human epic of pure faith and grit.
Okay, so how in the world do you get from the true story of a determined, lonely scholar to a massive fantasy epic starring a wild monkey demon? Well, that's where facts starts to get a little blurry.
Here's the key. This is the big change. The real Xuanzang was brilliant, capable, and incredibly tough. But, for a good adventure story, you need some stakes. So the novel changes him into Sanzo, a guy who's so holy and pure that he's kinda helpless. And why do that? Simple. A hero who can't defend himself needs bodyguards.
And what a group of bodyguards he gets! The novel gives the monk this whole crew of powerful, super-flawed demons. You've got the Monkey King, a greedy pig monster, a shamed river demon. All of them are sinners, and they're forced to protect the monk on his quest as their one and only shot at redemption. This is that classic dysfunctional team we all know and love.
Okay, so now that we've got all that history and context, let's circle back to Katsuya Terada's manga and really look at just how hard he twists this legendary story.
Yeah, that quote from the villain, the Ox King, talking about the holy monk Sanzo, it tells you everything. There is absolutely no subtlety here. This is a world of raw, primal appetites, where being holy just makes you look like a tastier meal.
You see, the original 16th century book was this big mix of adventure, comedy, and religious lessons. Terada looks at all that, and he throws the comedy and satire right out the window. He just cranks up the primal stuff. The violence, the lust, the cruelty, to get to the raw, beating, untamed heart of these characters.
And hey, don't just take my word for it. The book's own afterword says it plain as day. Terada takes every single chance he can get to lean into the most visceral, shocking parts of the journey. He's not just retelling a story, he's digging up its darkest, most violent core and putting it right on display for everyone to see.
So, you might be asking, what's the point of all this? What are they even fighting for? Well, it all comes down to this core Buddhist idea called samsara. It's basically the endless painful cycle of death and rebirth that we're all stuck in.
This world of suffering, and the whole journey to the West, the quest for these holy scriptures, it is literally a journey to find the escape hatch from exactly this type of violent, messed up world that Tarada draws so perfectly.
And the power of that central idea, this desperate journey to get out of a world of suffering, that's why this story has been retold in so many different ways for so long.
I mean, this slide just puts it all into perspective. You go from the original 16th century satirical novel to the goofy, fun-loving martial arts adventure of Dragon Ball, all the way to Terada's dark, bloody, brutal fantasy. You've got the same basic characters, the same essential quest, but each version is just a completely different animal, reflecting the time it was made in.
Ultimately, that's what it all boils down to. This story is just an incredibly tough and flexible myth. It's a canvas, and every generation gets to come along and paint its own picture of what it means to fight against your worst instincts, to search for something better, to figure out the line between being human and being a monster.
So I'll just leave you with this question to chew on. After 1,400 years of this story changing and evolving, what is the true version? Is it the quiet, determined faith of the real-life monk, Xuanzang? Or is it the screaming, blood-soaked rebellion of Terada's Monkey King? You know, maybe the real genius of the legend is that it's big enough for both.